2019, I started working on a documentary about the rising rate of measles.
Why is this happening?
Because people are choosing not to vaccinate their children.
And how some were trying to politicize science.
Anybody who tells you, trust me on the science, you shouldn't trust them.
Our citizens are part of a medical experiment you are putting on them.
It is our children that have been affected.
They believe what they're saying. Unfortunately, it's a false belief, and their anger is directed in the wrong place.
I watched reports that measles is deadly. I think we have to question what we call deadly. If Ebola is sweeping the country, talk to me then.
I had no idea what was coming next. Lockdown day one. From the beginning of COVID, our family struggled to make sense of what was going on.
I did think that the arrival of COVID would be the end of the anti-science world.
Were you right?
I was never so wrong in my life.
The vaccine itself is going to kill far more people.
Conspiracy theorists play into distrust. Don't trust the experts. Don't trust scientists.
It's going to be a disaster for mankind.
I absolutely see the pandemic as an opportunity.
On January 6th, these are the anti-vaxxers.
You've been sold a lie.
Della's selling a lie, and he's selling it hard, and we're just offering the truth.
Science isn't political, at least it shouldn't be. Vaccines have allowed us to live 30 years longer than we did 100 years ago. That's what vaccines can do.
This is Vax Talk, the podcast for people who prefer not to get polio.
To counter disinformation in a compassionate way, we have to get good information out there.
You were given a broken and beautiful world. You will take this world in your hands and make it less broken and more beautiful.
Once the truth doesn't matter, then it's not a democracy anymore.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Cherry the Geek TV. I'm Joe Vanourney. Shot in the Arm is a fascinating new documentary that explores the anti-vax movement, both historically and also in the current angry political climate. It also probes the disinformation movement and how disinformation can threaten humanity's future. Today, we are joined by two of the people responsible for Shot in the Arm. The first is an Academy Award nominated filmmaker. He's the director and producer of Shot in the Arm. It's Scott Hamilton Kennedy. And the other person, oh my God, is it really you? He's the executive producer of Shot in the Arm. He's a science communicator, the host of Star Talk. He's taken us on a journey through the cosmos, and he's America's favorite astrophysicist, Neil deGrasse Tyson. Scott, wow. Neil, welcome to Cherry the Geek TV.
Yeah, well, thank you. I love any name of any show that has the word geek in it.
Good. Scott, we'll start with you. Talk about the genesis of this film, right? Making documentary films is a fluid thing, right? Sometimes you start off making, you have in your head, you're going to make one film, right, and then situations happen and the film shifts. And that's what's happened in the case of Shot in the Arm. Talk about what you were making in 2019 and how that shifted in 2020 with COVID and how you had to shift and adapt as a filmmaker.
Thank you. Yeah, it is. It's one of the terrors and horrors of making and joys of making a documentary is that you have to have faith that it's going to all come out in the wash, I guess, as you could say. So in 2019, we thought we had Neil is deciding to open something at the same time. So in 2019, we decided in 2019, I was shocked to see record-breaking measles outbreaks in a few pockets of the United States, in where we're currently in New York City, in Brooklyn, in the Orthodox Jewish community in Brooklyn, in Washington State, across Europe. And I was wondering, why was this happening? And I reached out to Dr. Paul Offit, and he was kind enough to speak to me and educate me and say, well, Scott, maybe you didn't know this, but we could have eliminated measles. We almost eliminated measles from the United States in 2000.
Offit is is an expert in vaccines and has written volumes on it. Yes.
And he also pointed out that this is happening in these pockets because there are some disinformation merchants, some anti-vaxxers, clever communicators who have scared parents into not getting their kids vaccinated, and that's lowered vaccine rates and caused these outbreaks. So we thought we had a pretty fascinating story in 2019, following the public health, following the anti-vaxxers like Robert Kennedy Jr. And then COVID happened, and we had to pivot. We had to wonder, do we have a movie? And we thought for a minute, maybe this would be, some of us thought, ignorant ones like myself, thought for a minute that this would be the end of the anti-vax movement. But as Nurse Blima Marcus says in the film, she was hoping this would be the end of the anti-science, anti-vax movement. And I asked her how that went. She said, I've never been so wrong in my life. That we didn't see how much the anti-science community was going to double down and also kind of join because the traditional anti-vaxxer movement was mostly associated with the left, and then that became
liberal left,
the liberal left, and then as we saw during COVID, from the right, that people became anti-science more from a point of view of some cynicism, but also that it was more of a freedom thing that I don't want the government telling me what to do. So it's a very, very strange marriage there. And in the process of making this pivot, we found that we were actually making a movie about the social contract and like how much it means to our society, how much it means to our democracy, and how fragile it is if we don't look past the end of our nose and think about the decisions that we make don't just affect ourselves, how they affect all of our communities and really the planet.
Now, Neil, you came on board after Scott had completed filming the movie. Talk about your role, what you do as a science communicator and executive producer. What was your job on the film?
Yeah, I claim no medical expertise, of course, other than just what I read in accounts and in the popular press. So that's not why I was brought on. The film is chock full of medical professionals saying all that the film needs them to say. I'm there as an educator, as someone who spent most of my adult life trying to find the most effective and potent ways to take science information and have it get absorbed by someone who seeks it or is in need of it. And so Scott originally sent me the 2-hour version of this documentary. It's now 90 minutes. I think, thankfully, there was a lot of interesting stories, but they were, he liked them more than the film needed them. Is that a way to say that?
Well, like science, it's a process.
It's a process.
We call it a process.
Fine. And so I was initially just a script consultant. He said, we collaborated on an earlier film of his exploring the misinformation surrounding GMOs. And I served as a script consultant on that. I also narrated it. In this one, since I was on his Rolodex by then, he wanted me to have another look. So I did, and I made a whole bunch of comments, and he absorbed maybe 2/3 of them. We argued over another 1/6 of the comments, and the others I lost. But he's the filmmaker, and so there are things he knows about that craft that I do not. And so if people always agreed on everything in the creative act, then nothing advances, right? So you need some tension so that you say, I never thought about it that way. Oh, no, that's good. Let's do it that way. Well, maybe all right. So that's how you can ratchet up the creative expression of any collaborative act. So I'm there advising on when he might need to put in a chart or a graph to support what is otherwise a compelling delivered statement about science. And so I was privileged to be given that access to this very important film. And I think he liked what I was doing for him so well, then he promoted me, knighted me executive director. Executive producer, which brought me in a much larger way about trying to gain visibility for the film, which I carry on my platforms in any case. So the question is, how can my platforms also help serve the film? So that's where this came about. I'm also in the film for 5 seconds, getting my first vaccine shot. Oh, by the way,
Harlem
Scott mentioned the liberal left and the conservative right meeting, agreeing that they don't want to be vaccinated, but for different reasons. There's a third camp in there, which was the Black community, which, when there was resistance, it was not for either of those two reasons. It was because distrust of the integrity of the medical community, as manifested in the Tuskegee experiments, where Black men with syphilis were given placebos with the claim, however, that they were being cured. And that was just to watch and document the progression of syphilis in the human body. They did this without consent, affirmed consent, and this sowed very deep distrust in the field. So I went up and got my first shot in Harlem Hospital, and they had a little media thing around it just to try to get into a community that might otherwise be resistant.
Or help regain some of that trust.
Regain the trust.
Do you have any idea of how many cases of measles were in Samoa between, say, 1986 and 2019?
I have no idea.
Great, okay, I've got that. 1986, 1 case of measles. 93, 7, 2005, 0, 2006, 0, 2009, 0, and in 2019 there were 5,707 measles cases. Do you know what happened in 2019?
Yeah, I'm aware there was a measles outbreak, but I didn't have anything, I had nothing to do with people not vaccinating in Samoa. I never told anybody not to vaccinate. I didn't, go there for any reason to do with that.
One News has learned of a high-level anti-vax meeting just before this deadly measles outbreak, a meeting between vaccination critic Robert Kennedy Jr. and anti-vax blogger Taylor Winterstein. Publicising her meeting with the high-profile Kennedy as profoundly monumental for her movement.
This so-called anti-vaxxer, Edwin Tamasese, he had promoted the use of vitamin C to cure the disease.
During the country's 2-day mass measles vaccination drive last week, he posted, "I'll be here to mop up your mess, enjoy your killing sprees."
But the government is fighting back.
Edwin Tamasese is now under arrest, charged with incitement against a government.
Scott, you talked to a number of anti-vaxxer, the big communicators of the anti-vax movement are featured in the film. One of them, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. You get him to sit down for interviews with you. He seems to be in denial. He always denies, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I never tell people not to get a vaccine. And then you show clips of him where he's obviously he's the leader of one of the big spokespeople for the anti-vax movement. What's your take on this guy? And since you made the film, he's announced that he's running for president. I don't think he's going to get a lot of traction, but do you think he's going to cause harm as a presidential candidate? This issue. It
seems that he could absolutely cause a lot of harm. I'm glad that he gave us the interview. But from my knowledge, he has not seen the film yet, and I'm looking forward to his response to the film. He is a bit of a bully, so it's going to be interesting to see if he tries to scare us and bully us. We will not be moved. But he uses his superpowers for evil, is one of the ways you could put it. He's a very good communicator. He uses his family's name and the amazing things that family has done for public service in our country, and I thank them for that, including incredible dedication to public health. Thankfully, some of his siblings have come out very clearly, not just countering him on disinformation around vaccines years ago, but coming out again and saying, please don't let him become president. It's dangerous to our country. So yes, I don't have a lot of kind words to say for Robert Kennedy Jr. He's a manipulator of the truth, and I do find him dangerous.
For me, what I find odd is the posture he has taken about vaccines involves sowing distrust in the scientists that are actively producing it and creating it, and showing distrust in the consensus that has arisen, hard earned, in the science research community. When I say consensus, I don't mean opinion, even though that's what the word means. In science, when we say consensus, it's research and observational, published peer-reviewed research. Is there a consensus in the research? All right, which is not a matter of opinion, it's a matter of data. And so
repeatability.
Yeah, and repeatability especially. So the fact that he would sow distrust in that, and there's even a line there that said in the film that says, if a scientist says trust me, then don't. Meanwhile, he's all in on the science of climate change. And so I find that odd, how an entire community of scientists in one case can be trusted in his mind, and in another case not. And so I don't fully understand that. And so we're in a democracy. Voters will ultimately decide. And I think that we were discussing earlier that there's this David and Goliath culture that we embrace.
And a manipulation. Yeah, right there.
Which is no one's going to root for Goliath, of course. You're going to root for David. And oh, by the way, this is a little off ramp here. I'm in Italy and I see the statue of David, and he's highly muscled there. I'm in the Uffizi and I see a different statue of David. It's a bronze statue, sculpture. And he's looking not strong at all. Okay. No musculature. And he's carrying the sling. And then you realize, of course, that's what David would be.
Yeah.
But that's makes this what it is. Okay. You don't need muscles to throw a sling. It's the sling that took down. David didn't wrestle Goliath, okay, with his musculature. Okay, he used the physics of a sling. All right, and you don't need big muscles to do that. So the point is, culturally, we're all kind of in for the underdog, right? And if someone says there's this faceless institution that does not have your interest in mind, but I do, follow me and we can fight them. That's a David and Goliath story. And it's a hard one to overcome, because these are people with charisma and they're tapping into fear. And as is said in the film so brilliantly, all we can do is just sort of offer the truth that comes out of faceless peer-reviewed scientific studies. And they were just offering it. Meanwhile, the untruths are being peddled with high levels of charisma and David and Goliath motif.
Well, we are sadly out of time. It's a wonderful film. It's called Shot in the Arm. Scott, how can people, it's opening in LA in a few weeks. It's opening in New York this weekend. After that, it'll come to additional cities. Where can people kind of see a schedule, find out more about the film? Is there a website, social media?
You got it. Yeah. So we open in New York City tonight as we're taping, and we'll be here for a week at the wonderful Angelika Film Center, and then opening in Los Angeles November 17th at the iconic independent cinemas, the Laemmle in Glendale, California. Neil and I will be doing Q&As for the next few nights here in New York City, and then Neil.
In New York, we'll talk back at the end.
Talk back,
yeah.
And then same in Los Angeles. Neil will be there on the 17th of November, and I'll continue on without him for some other Q&As. But you can go to shotinthearmmovie.com to find out about the latest theaters that we're going to be playing in. You can also request from your local theaters to have us come to your city, and you can set up private screenings there as well. And we'll be on PBS in 2024. But yeah, please come and let's get more screenings out there.
Awesome. Film's called Shot at
So
the Arm.
can I throw in a quick geek question of you?
Yeah.
You have Batman on the back on your shelf there. Okay.
Yes.
When did Batman go from the Batman to just Batman? When did they lose the? And the original Batman had Bat-Man, the Batman.
Well, that's the TV show.
So I'm just asking, when did we lose the and when did we lose the hyphen?
Do you know the answer?
No, I'm asking.
I don't know the answer.
I'm not testing you.
I was like, tell me, Neil deGrasse.
Okay, I'm just intrigued when words lose their hyphen.
I'm gonna look it up. I'll look that up, find that out. So Scott and Neil, thank you so much for chatting with me today on Cherry the Geek TV.
You got
Appreciate you. Thank you.